Nearing the remains of the Bojas residence, Roberto killed the motorcycle's engine and popped the kickstand. The rain had slackened, and as he buckled his helmet and hung it loosely on the handlebars, he paused to look around. Where the once beautiful 3-story home had stood was a dead skeleton of scorched walls. The western side was completely gone. The others had been reduced to remnants of no more than shoulder height. There was no fire that he could see, but he knew from the carbonized remains and sooty streaks that fire had been there. The odor of waterlogged ashes hung heavy in the air, but except for the quiet pitter-patter of a few rain droplets, the normally active jungle was eerily silent. "Professor Bojas?" he heard himself shout. "Senor está bem? Are you all right?" Nothing. As he looked out toward the rest of the ranch, he was stunned. The fences were gone, stripped along with trees and underbrush for nearly a half-kilometer beyond where the perimeter had been. The entire southwest side of the compound was blackened to ashes wherever there were plants or structures that he could see. He left the remnants of the house and quietly made his way toward Bojas' laboratory, although even now he guessed it was no longer there. Roberto was not a superstitious man by nature, but the mystery of what had happened hung like a ghost over the charred remains. The quiet was unnerving, and he became acutely aware that he was almost tiptoeing as he walked. He called out again, "Dr. Bojas! Está aquí! Are you here?" Again, only quiet. As he crept forward, the soil began to have an odd sensation beneath his feet, so Roberto stopped to kneel and feel the ground. The mud had become more granular, like tiny ceramic beads mixed with wet clay. The gritty texture was unnatural between his fingers, so strange, in fact, that at first he thought it might be something dropped on the unpaved roadway by accident. But the farther he went, the stranger the soil became, until he thought it was almost like walking on crushed ceramic tile. "Nossa Senhora," he mumbled quietly as he went. The water puddled in irregular depressions, making walking increasingly slippery. Then he stopped, his legs weak, his mouth agape. Where the laboratory had been was a crater scoured out of the ground, almost 100 meters wide and at least a half-dozen deep. The smooth, polished inside gleamed like evil red-black glass, even as rainwater trickled in and pooled at the bottom. The rim was hard and sharp, like broken pottery fired with a blowtorch. The ground where he stood looked as if it had sprouted mounds of razor-sharp popcorn made of tan and crimson flint. Roberto's mind raced. Was it the gas tank? A bomb? Maybe a meteor fell from the sky and just hit his lab? The desolate landscape defied his ability to explain, but the fact remained that the entire compound was destroyed, immolated. The house was virtually gone, and there was no evidence that Bojas' lab ever existed. All that remained was an enormous glassy hole in the ground. No building, no tanks, no generator, no hangar, nothing. It was as if somebody had nuked the place, Roberto thought. Then he froze as the two thoughts clicked together in his head. Bojas was a physicist, wasn't he? A nuclear physicist. Suddenly, from somewhere back in the back of his mind, he recalled a story he had heard. In the nearby state of Goiânia, only 4 years before, local villagers scavenging in an abandoned hospital had salvaged a steel-white cylinder, cracked it open, and found a pretty yellow-white material inside. People came from all around to look at the strange stuff. Just like phosphorescent paint, it glowed and would continue to glow long after dark. Children played and painted themselves with it. Some had even eaten it. But the substance from inside the metal canister was worse than poison. As those exposed absorbed it into their bodies, the sickness came. They began to form open sores and purplish bruising on their skin. When they had vomited and bled from their mouths, radiation from the glowing cesium they had discovered had begun to slowly eat them from the inside out. Several people, including a 6-year-old child, died cruel, lingering deaths. Roberto felt a slowly building surge of panic. What if this was some kind of nuclear accident? He thought. His curiosity now replaced with ever-growing fear, he began to back away from the crater. He recalled seeing the ugly yellow and black warning signs on the lab from his previous visits. He remembered the stories of the radiation accident at Chernobyl, where hundreds had perished as atomic poison rotted their flesh, absorbed from the contaminated air and water. As he moved further away, his walk became a trot, and then a run. Radiation, poison, death echoed through his head as he dashed madly back to his motorcycle. If there was radiation, he hoped and prayed it wasn't too late. It only took a moment to don his helmet and start his machine before he gunned the engine, sending a rooster tail of black and red mud behind him, the package almost forgotten in the strapped-on delivery carrier. Like a bad omen, the rain began anew from the dark clouds overhead, thunder rolling over the desolate ranch as the motorcycle zoomed through the blackened gate onto the road back to the Trans-Amazon Highway. Roberto did not know what had happened at the Bojas estate, and he had no way of knowing that in actuality there was no radiation there to harm him. But he did know, as he sped away, that nothing at the estate was left alive.